When you think Cradle of Civilization, what comes to mind? Probably Mesopotamia, right? The Fertile Crescent. Well, what if I told you the history books might have missed a huge, much earlier chapter, one hidden deep in the heart of Europe? Today, we're digging into this really radical claim that the world's first advanced society wasn't in the Middle East at all. Nope, it was right here in ancient Romania.
I mean, think about it. Was the first advanced civilization not in Mesopotamia, but in Europe? And thousands of years earlier? This is a question that could literally rewrite everything we thought we knew about human progress. So we're going to follow the evidence, piece by piece, and see if this bold idea actually holds up. It's kind of like a historical detective story, and you get to be the detective right alongside me. Okay, so let's meet our two contenders. In this corner, the reigning champion, the one you read about in school, the Sumerian civilization in Mesopotamia. They're the textbook origin of cities, writing, the state, the whole shebang. And in the other corner, our challenger from what historians call Old Europe, the Danube Valley culture, also known as the Vinci culture. A really mysterious and, as we'll see, a remarkably sophisticated society. All right, so first things first, we have to ask the most basic question. Who came first? It's just a simple race against the clock, but believe me, the results might just surprise you. And wow, the timeline here is just crystal clear. You've got the Vinci culture hitting its peak way back around 5400 BC. Now compare that to the Sumerian urban revolution, when their great cities really started to pop up. That didn't even get going until 3800 BC. Do the math, that's a gap of at least 1500 years. On the clock, it's not even a contest. The Vinci culture has a massive head start. And listen, we're not talking about a few scattered huts in the woods here. The evidence shows the Vinci people built these large, organized, and super stable settlements, some of the biggest in all of prehistoric Europe. You can think of them as proto-cities, these bustling communities that were thriving for centuries on end. Okay, but being older doesn't automatically mean you're more advanced, right? So we need to look at what these societies actually did. Did the Vinci culture use that 1500-year head start to develop the kinds of technologies that we normally associate with civilization? And this is where their story gets truly incredible. The Vinci people weren't just chipping away at stone tools. At a site called Rudna Glava, archaeologists found the world's earliest known copper mine, and it dates all the way back to 5500 BC. Think about what that means. They were the planet's first copper smelters. They mastered a technology that would literally change the entire course of human history. That is a huge deal. But it doesn't even stop with technology. The Vinci also left behind thousands and thousands of artifacts, all covered in these really mysterious symbols. For decades, researchers have been scratching their heads, debating what they are. Are they just cool decorations, religious icons, or, and this is the big one, could they be something more, a kind of proto-writing? Which brings us to probably the most explosive piece of evidence in this whole debate, the Tartaria tablets, discovered right there in Romania. Now, the people who support this Danube civilization theory claim these tablets, with all their little symbols, date to around 5300 BC. If that's true, it would predate the earliest Sumerian writing by nearly 2,000 years. Game over, right? Well, not so fast. This is where the story gets really complicated. These tablets are incredibly controversial. For one, you can't directly radiocarbon date them. The whole story of how they were found is a bit murky, and some folks have even pointed out that a few of the symbols look a little too much like Sumerian ones that were published around that time. So when you have claims of forgery and even political agendas floating around, you just can't consider the tablets a smoking gun. They're just too contentious. So we've got an older culture, amazing technology, and a mysterious symbolic system. Case closed? Not quite, because this is the point where we have to hit the brakes and ask a really critical question. What actually is a civilization? It's more than just being old and clever. There's a definition. See, in archaeology, the word civilization has a very specific meaning. It needs a whole package of things, but the single most essential ingredient, the one you can't do without, is the state. A state is a centralized political institution. It's got the power to manage a huge population, to mobilize labor for big projects, and to enforce its will. Without a state, you can have a really advanced, amazing culture, but you don't have a civilization. Okay, so now that we have this strict definition, let's re-examine our two contenders, This isn't about who made copper first anymore. This is about who first built that complex political machinery we call the state. And when you put them side by side like this, the key differences just jump right out at you. Take metallurgy. The Vinci were the pioneers, yeah, but they seem to have made it for low-volume, prestige goods, like fancy jewelry. Sumer, on the other hand, scaled it up to run an entire state economy, making tools and weapons. And the symbols. The Vinci symbols seem to be for rituals or domestic use, but Sumerian writing? That was an administrative tool for running a government. And here's the biggest one. The Vinci had these big, independent towns, but Sumer built true cities, all managed by a centralized state.
You know, a really good way to think about this is horizontal versus vertical complexity. The Vinci culture was horizontally complex. It was spread out, a wide network of autonomous towns that all shared a culture and technology. But Sumer was vertically complex. Think of a pyramid. It was organized from the top down, with a ruling class, with administrators, with laborers, all of them working inside this strict state structure.
And at the end of the day, the archaeological record is pretty clear on this. Despite all their incredible achievements, there is simply no evidence, none, that the Vinci culture ever developed that one key ingredient, that top-down centralized state apparatus that is the absolute hallmark of a civilization. So where does that leave us? What's the final verdict? After looking at all the evidence, was the world's first advanced society in ancient Romania?
First off, let's be absolutely clear. We have to give the Vinci culture its due. These people were true trailblazers. They were the world's first copper smelters. They built some of Europe's largest and most stable prehistoric towns. And they created one of the earliest and most complex symbolic systems we've ever found. Their accomplishments are undeniable, and they're hugely important to human history, full stop.
But the final verdict has to be a nuanced one. The Danube Valley was, without a doubt, home to a profoundly advanced and innovative culture. They were absolute pioneers. But it was Sumeria that took that next crucial step. It was Sumeria that first put all the pieces together. The cities, the social hierarchy, the administrative writing, and built that critical political machine we call the state. And in doing so, they built the world's first true civilization.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? In the grand story of human progress, what's more impressive? Being the one to pioneer a new technology, or being the ones to build the system that uses that technology to change the entire world? It's definitely something to think about.